Hello and welcome to another episode or video, depending on whether you're listening to this on your favorite podcast player or watching this on YouTube. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the education system and kind of the warning signs that I see that we are in some ways heading towards an educational collapse. I've posted a little bit about this in the past, but I think the writing is on the wall that at the moment I feel like the school system is not really operating in the best interests of children. It's failing significant numbers of children, and teachers are quitting in droves. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of mismanagement, and pretty much the only reason why it is still functioning as a thing is that it has governmental support and financial backing, and the regulations prevent any alternatives from being proposed. But as there's simultaneously opportunities and dangers within this. So there are opportunities with educational collapse, and I'm not talking about like preying on people that are struggling. I'm just saying that if you are offering sessions for home educating families or offering things for that sector, it's growing because a lot of parents are making decisions not because they want to particularly homeschool, but they feel like they have no other choice and that they are acting in the best interests of their children in taking them out of school and providing a much better, any support for children that are struggling. Particularly with mental health, especially educational needs, the system just doesn't seem to be able to handle it. So if you are able to provide either alternative provision for these children, or you are able to offer sessions for homemade families, then there's opportunity there. And of course, if a better education system rises from the ashes, then I think we all benefit. If it's one that prioritizes mental health and holistic growth, so as in not just focused on the singular point of academics, designed pretty much as it was in Prussia to basically make an educated factory workforce. All we're looking for is a better education system, and I think if one emerges from this, it will be of benefit to us all. But as I said, there are dangers, and this is a collapse of a system like this, particularly one supported by a government, by a country, is difficult, and it's a long drawn out process. So we're kind of I feel like we're seeing the beginning of the end here. But we have a long way to go and a lot of pain and suffering before we get there. I mean, we're seeing the first strains of that within this increased pressure to regulate home education, to be a bit more draconian with attendances, to basically force children into schools whichever way they can. And this will also include, no doubt is really included in the recent bill, more regulation of people who provide out-of-school activities for children. So we will likely see a lot more regulation and a lot more pressure in this area, and a lot more, I'm going to say accountability, but that's not really the right word. We're going to see a lot more bureaucracy emerging in this space, I think. And that is almost never a good thing, in my personal opinion. That once a system starts lashing out in this way, it doesn't really get very much better. It's fighting. Like anyone knows, a dying animal is a very dangerous animal because it's backed into a corner and it'll do anything to survive. And what we have is an education system where the people left within it, I mean, there are some fantastic teachers out there, fantastic people still working within the system, but a lot of the people who really cared have left because they can't bear what's happening to the children within the system. So what we're seeing is Cornell's iron law of bureaucracy, and I've talked a bit about this before, but essentially, if you have an organization, when it first starts out, it's all about the goals of the organization. What we want is education for every child, so every child can read and write, and every child has a full range of opportunities. But then as an organization grows and ages and moves on and more people come in, particularly more management, then we start seeing people who are not dedicated to the original vision of the goals, but dedicated to the continuation of that organization. They care more about the survival of the organization than the regional goals. Because if you look at the regional goals and the stated goals of the education system, which is to make good citizens who have wide prospects, who can achieve at every level, who can go on to do anything they want, it's failing by every measure within that. The children that do succeed in the education system, I feel, succeed despite it rather than because of it. These are children that are extremely adaptable, able to cope with a wide variety of different demands and situations, and will succeed in life pretty much no matter what they do. But then the vast majority are going to be left as they are now, struggling to work within a system that's not really designed in their best interests. So there's a couple of ways that things can pan out from here. So either we see the continuing exodus from the school system, and we see lots of people opting for, if they can afford to, private schools, home education, or just being forced to rely on whatever schools provide. And once numbers drop low enough and we see schools merge and teachers leave the profession in greater numbers, then eventually we could end up with a complete collapse, where we essentially, and I think we already do, operate in a three-tiered system. So you have the state school, you have home education, and you have private schools, not necessarily in that order, but they're basically three different tiers of affordability. And once that happens, well, then it'll be motivation for a government to come in and stand up and say, okay, we need to do something differently, and hopefully remove regulations. But another, probably more likely way for this to pan out is this increase in regulations where the original wording of the Education Act, I can't remember which one it is now, for university was a while ago, but the original Education Act stated something along the lines of, it is the parental responsibility to choose the suitable education for their children. And currently that's used for people as a right to home educate, and they use this. And if we see the school system decline further, one of the responses may well be to roll back this right and reinterpret that act and say, basically, no, the government has overall, the state has overall say on where your children, how and where your children are educated. And basically they'll reduce parental rights and parental responsibility in some ways, and we will move to more of a totalitarian education system. And I mean, this is, you can see this in a couple of different other countries, but in essence, we will either see a relaxing of regulations or an increasing of regulations. Now, given my experience and historical viewpoint on governments, I think it's unlikely that we'll see less regulation, but we can hope that eventually enough parents and educators and educational lecturers and educationalists will come together and force the hand of whichever government is in power to open it up and maybe create a credit system where people can take the education credits and they can either use it for books from home educating libraries. They can use it for online AI-driven courses. They can use it to get forest school or bushcraft sessions. They can use it to, join a Steiner school or a private school, or use it to join a select few private public education institutions, which would need to operate on a very different way to the way they do now. So it's a long way of saying there's a lot of uncertainty coming, and I always try and stay optimistic and hope for the best, but at the same time I'm aware that there will be struggles. It's not going to be pretty as the education system goes through this process. So we need to be prepared and be thinking ahead and planning ahead and staying abreast of regulation and government intention, and sometimes standing up and being counted and saying, hey, no, this is not in the best interest of the children of this country, and we're not standing for it. So again, that's my little rant and ramble on the education system. Love to hear your thoughts. Do shoot me an email if this has resonated with you, or you disagree completely. I'm interested in hearing your point of view either way. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Remember to make the most of every day, and I'll catch you all next time.